I never thought betrayal could come from my own blood. I raised my son with everything I had, worked 2 jobs, skipped meals, sold my jewelry so he could go to college. I believed that when the time came, he'd stand beside me with pride, maybe thank me for the years I gave up for him. But life doesn't always play fair. Sometimes it cuts right where it hurts the most. It happened on a quiet Sunday afternoon. I was sitting by the window, sipping my coffee, watching the autumn leaves fall. The phone buzzed. It was my son, Mark. His voice sounded distant, cold, like he was calling out of obligation. I tried to make small talk to feel that warmth I used to hear when he was little, but it wasn't there anymore. After a few awkward pauses, I finally asked, "So, when's the big day? When are you and Emma getting married?" There was a silence, the kind that makes your stomach twist, and then I heard her voice in the background. Confident, almost smug, she said, "We got married 2 months ago." My heart stopped. Just like that. No ceremony, no invitation, no mother's blessing. My only son got married without telling me. Without even giving me the chance to see him in his suit, to hold his hand, to say I'm proud. I sat there, the phone still in my hand, the coffee turning cold. That moment changed something inside me. The mother in me broke, but something else, something sharper was born in her place. And from that day on, I decided they would both learn what it means to leave me out. For days I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them, Mark and Emma, standing in front of some courthouse, smiling for pictures I was never part of. I'd raised that boy alone for 30 years after his father left us. I'd worked nights at the diner, saved every penny, skipped vacations, skipped life itself just to make sure he had one. And now all that sacrifice meant nothing. I replayed Emma's voice over and over again. We got married 2 months ago? The tone in her words, it wasn't guilt, it was victory. That's when I realized it wasn't just my son's doing, it was hers. She'd turned him against me. The next morning I drove past their house. They'd moved into a quiet neighborhood outside Denver, one of those new developments where every house looks the same, but you can still tell who has more money. I parked across the street and sat there in my old Toyota, watching their lights flicker through the blinds. I wasn't spying, not yet. I just wanted to see if he looked happy, if he looked like my son. After half an hour they came out. Mark carried a box of things, maybe new dishes, maybe wedding gifts. Emma followed, laughing, holding a mug in one hand and his arm in the other. The way she looked at Hemmet wasn't love. It was possession, like she'd won something. I felt a burning in my chest, anger mixed with grief. I wasn't going to cry this time. I'd cried enough. When they drove away, I slipped out of my car and walked up to their porch. There was still mail in the box, a package by the door. And through the window I could see the faint outline of their living room. A photo frame sat on the mantel, Mark in his suit, Emma in her dress, both smiling. I stood there for a long moment. Then I pulled out my phone, snapped a picture, and left. That night, I made myself a promise. I wouldn't confront them yet. Not until I knew everything. I started with small steps. Social media. Emma's Facebook was private, but Mark's wasn't. He'd posted photos of them at dinner, on trips, laughing like the world was perfect. I zoomed in on the pictures, her hand, always on his, her smile wide, controlling. Then I found something interesting. A tag. She worked for a real estate agency downtown, Bright Homes Realty. I looked up the address, wrote it on a sticky note, and stuck it to my fridge. By the 3rd week, I'd turned my pain into purpose. I told people at work I was fine. I smiled. I cooked. I even sent Mark a text saying I missed him. He didn't reply. That hurt more than I expected, but it only made me colder. I drove to Emma's office on a Friday afternoon. I waited in my car until she came out. She was wearing a beige coat, heels, and a smile that could melt anyone's heart. She looked like the kind of woman who always gets what she wants. I followed her, not close enough to be seen, but close enough to know where she went. A restaurant. Then another man showed up. Tall, sharp suit, hand on her lower back. She laughed, leaned in close. My breath caught. I grabbed my phone, took a few photos, and zoomed in. His name tag said David. He wasn't Mark. I felt my pulse racing. My son's wife was cheating. That night, I sat on my couch staring at the pictures, my fingers trembling. I should have felt vindicated, but I didn't. I felt sick. My son was blind. He'd chosen her over me, and she was playing him for a fool. I didn't sleep. I made coffee after coffee, watching the clock crawl past midnight. Then something inside me shifted again. Maybe this was my chance not just to watch, but to act. The next morning, I printed the photos. Real prints. The kind you can hold in your hand. I placed them in a plain white envelope, wrote Mark on the front, and drove to their house. Their car wasn't there. Good, I slipped the envelope into their mailbox and left. No note, no message. Just truth, waiting to be found. As I drove home, the radio played an old Fleetwood Mac song, Go Your Own Way. I laughed to myself. How fitting. That evening, I sat by the phone waiting. An hour passed, then two. Then my phone finally rang. It was him, Mom. What did you do? His voice was trembling. I pretended to sound confused. What do you mean? Emma's gone, he said. She left. She said someone sent you pictures. I stayed silent, letting him fill the gaps. She said you're trying to ruin my marriage. Why would you do that? I wanted to scream. Ruin your marriage. She did that herself. But instead, I whispered, I just wanted you to know the truth. He hung up without another word. That night was the first time I didn't cry. Not because it didn't hurt, but because I felt powerful. After years of being invisible, I'd finally made them see me. But I wasn't done. The next morning, I drove by again. His car was still there. Hers wasn't. The curtains were drawn. I could see the silhouette of my son sitting alone at the kitchen table. His head was in his hands. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Then I remembered how he'd left me out of the most important day of his life. Karma was a funny thing. Sometimes it just needed a little push, and I wasn't afraid to give it one. Asterisk, the days after Emma left were strangely quiet. I thought I'd feel some kind of peace, like justice had finally been served. But peace didn't come. My house still felt empty. My phone still didn't ring. And every time I looked at the clock, I wondered if Mark was eating, if he was sleeping, if he was even okay. Revenge is supposed to make you feel strong. Instead, it made me feel hollow. I tried to distract myself, cleaned the kitchen, repainted the porch, even started baking again. But everything reminded me of him. The smell of pancakes, the sound of football games on TV, the way the wind rattled the windows the same way it did when he was a boy, and I'd tuck him in. I told myself I'd done the right thing. She deserved it. She was poison. But deep down, I knew I'd done it for me, not him. Then, one evening, the phone rang again. His voice was weak this time, quieter. Mom, he said, can I come over? I froze. It had been months since he'd said those words. Of course, I whispered. When he arrived, he looked smaller. His shoulders slumped, his eyes sunken, beard grown out like he hadn't cared for days. He stood at the door, unsure whether to hug me. I didn't wait. I pulled him into my arms like he was 10 years old again. We sat in the kitchen. I poured him coffee, the same brand I used to make every morning when he lived here. He stared at the steam for a long time before saying, She's filing for divorce. I nodded slowly. I'm sorry, honey, he shook his head. No, you're not. The words hit me harder than I expected. He sighed. I don't know what to believe anymore. Emma says you were trying to destroy us. You say she was cheating? I don't know. I reached for his hand. I didn't lie to you, Mark. I've never lied to you. Not once. He looked up then, and for a moment I saw my little boy again, the one who used to bring me wildflowers from the yard. His eyes softened. I know, Mom, he said finally. I just wish things had been different. After he left that night, I felt something stir inside me again. Not vengeance this time, but a kind of hope. Maybe this was my chance to fix things. But hope can be a dangerous thing. 2 weeks later, I got a message from one of Emma's coworkers. She'd found my number through a mutual friend from church. You don't know me, the message said, but I thought you should know Emma's been spreading stories about you at her office, at the gym, everywhere. She's saying you're unstable. Obsessive. I laughed at first, then I stopped, because I knew Emma and she was exactly the kind of woman who'd do that. The kind who doesn't just walk away, she burns the bridge and the land around it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking of all the years I spent building my reputation, the charity work, the PTA meetings, the long nights helping neighbors when their husbands were out drinking, and now, she was out there painting me as some crazy old woman. I wasn't going to let her win again the next day. I drove downtown, parked a block away from her office. I'd done this before, but this time I wasn't just watching. I walked in. The receptionist looked up. Can I help you, ma'am? Yes, I said, smiling politely. I'm looking for Emma Brooks. She's out showing a property, the woman said. Can I leave her a message? That's okay, I said. I'll wait. I sat there for almost 40 minutes, pretending to scroll through my phone. Then Emma walked in, confident as ever. Phone in one hand, latte in the other. Her eyes met mine, and for the first time, she froze. Linda, she said, her voice tight. What are you doing here? I smiled. Just wanted to see the woman who calls me crazy. People turned to look. Her cheeks flushed red. This isn't the place, she hissed. Then where is the place, Emma? I said quietly, because you sure didn't think twice before destroying my family. She tried to push past me, but I stepped closer. You're not done hurting him yet, are you? You want him broken, just like you wanted me erased. Her jaw clenched. You did this to yourself. I leaned in close enough for her to smell the coffee on my breath. You'll regret saying that. Then I walked out calm, controlled, but inside I was shaking that night. I opened my laptop and did something I never thought I'd do. I created a fake social media profile, a young woman someone Emma's type would trust. I started following her, liking her posts, commenting on pictures. Within a week, she followed back. It didn't take long before she started messaging. She bragged about her new freedom, about dating again, about how men are easier when they think you're innocent. I screenshotted everything, every message, every flirty text. When I had enough, I sent it all to Mark. No words, just proof. He didn't respond for 3 days. On the 4th, I got a call. "She's threatening to file harassment charges," he said, his voice trembling. "She says you've been stalking her." I laughed bitterly. "Stalking, please. She's playing you again, Mark." But then he said something that froze my blood. "The police came by. They asked questions. They have your car on traffic cameras outside her office." My heart dropped. He whispered, "Mom, what did you do?" That night, I sat in the dark, the weight of everything pressing down on me. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I just wanted her to feel what I felt, invisible, unwanted, small. But somehow, I'd become exactly what she said I was. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. I poured myself a glass of wine, staring at the rain streaking down the window. My son thought I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had, but I couldn't stop now. Not after everything. Because revenge isn't something you can turn off. Once it starts, it becomes part of you, and deep down, I knew. The worst was yet to come. Asterisk, the days after the police came were the longest of my life. I barely left the house. Every sound outside made my chest tighten, a car door, a knock, a phone vibration. I'd gone too far, and I knew it. Mark stopped calling. That silence hurt more than any words ever could. The last message he sent me was short. "I need space, Mom." I kept replaying those 3 words, space. He wanted space from the woman who gave him life. Space from the person who never left his side, but maybe he was right. Maybe I'd become someone even I didn't recognize. I sat by the window for hours, staring at the street where he used to ride his bike, where I used to wave from the porch as he drove off to school. Those memories felt like a lifetime ago. I kept wondering, where did I go wrong? Then one night there was a knock at the door. My heart jumped. For a second I thought it was the police again, but when I opened it, it was Emma. She looked different, tired, pale, almost human. Her hair wasn't perfect. Her voice wasn't sharp. For the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. "Can I come in?" she asked quietly. Every instinct in me screamed no, but I stepped aside. She walked in, her heels clicking on the wood floor, her perfume faint but familiar. We stood there facing each other like 2 ghosts trapped in the same past. "I didn't come here to fight," she said finally. "I came to end this." I folded my arms. "End? What? This, whatever it is between us? It's destroying him." Her words hit me hard. She took a shaky breath. "Mark's not eating. He barely sleeps. He blames himself for everything. The photos, the lies, the distance. He thinks it's all his fault." I swallowed my throat dry. "And what about me, Emma? You turned him against me. You erased me from his life." Tears filled her eyes. "I know," she whispered, "and I'll never forgive myself for that. But you have to stop, please, before there's nothing left to fix." For a long time, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the wind brushing against the windows. Then she said something I didn't expect. "He still loves you, Linda. He just doesn't know how to love both of us at the same time." I looked away. My eyes stung, but I refused to cry in front of her. She put a small envelope on the table. "He's moving to Seattle, a new start. He wanted me to tell you because he doesn't have the strength to—" I stared at the envelope, then back at her. "And what about you?" she sighed. "I'm leaving too. Different state, different life. I can't stay here after everything." I wanted to feel victorious, like I'd finally won, but I didn't. It felt empty, hollow, like watching a house burn that you built with your own hands. Emma turned to leave. At the door, she paused. "I know you hate me, and maybe you always will. But for what it's worth, I never wanted to replace you. I just wanted him to be happy." Then she was gone. That night, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the envelope. Inside was a letter from Mark. His handwriting was shaky but familiar. "Mom, I don't know how to fix what's broken. I don't even know when it all fell apart. Maybe when Dad left. Maybe when I met Emma. Maybe when I stopped calling as much. I don't hate you, Mom. I never could. But I need to breathe. I need to find myself again before I lose everything that makes me who I am. You once told me love is when you let someone go and still pray for their happiness. I never understood that until now. Please, let me go for a while. And when I come back, I hope we can start over. Love. Mark. By the time I finished reading, my vision blurred with tears. I pressed the letter to my chest, and for the first time in months, I cried. not out of anger, but out of loss. The next morning, I drove to the lake, the one where I used to take him fishing when he was little. The air was cold, the water still. I stood at the edge, holding the letter, and whispered into the wind, "I'm sorry. Sorry for the control, the lies, the obsession. Sorry for becoming the kind of mother I swore I'd never be. Sometimes revenge doesn't destroy the person you target. It destroys you." I stayed there until the sun started to rise, painting the water in shades of gold and red. It was beautiful, quiet, peaceful, almost forgiving. For the first time, I understood what letting go truly meant. When I got home, I cleaned the house top to bottom, packed up old photos, boxed away the past. On the kitchen counter, I left Mark's favorite cookies in a jar, just in case he ever came back. Then I sat down with my phone and recorded a message not to send, just to say what I couldn't before. "Mark, if you ever hear this, I want you to know I never stopped loving you. I just didn't know how to love you without losing myself. I thought revenge would make me feel strong, but it didn't. It only reminded me how much I needed you. Wherever you are, I hope you're happy. That's all that matters now." I stopped recording, took a deep breath, and hit delete. Some words aren't meant to be sent. They're meant to set you free. Weeks turned into months. The police never came back. The neighbors stopped whispering, and slowly the ache in my chest started to fade. One morning, as I was watering the plants, a letter arrived. No return address, just my name written in familiar handwriting. Inside was a photo Mark, standing in front of a small house in Seattle, smiling again. On the back he'd written, "Starting over. Thinking of you." I smiled through the tears. For the first time in a long time, it didn't hurt. Because maybe revenge wasn't the ending of my story. Maybe forgiveness was fade out. The sound of wind through trees, soft piano music rising. A story not about vengeance but about learning how to let go.